Now we are. Now we're recording.
All right. Well, I hope you're ready for this.
You got to do the whole thing in a British accent.
Well, all right. No, like that's not anybody's British accent from this movie.
No, that's the wrong. Yeah, you're doing like Cockney or something.
Yeah, if I was doing Heathcliff's, how would that be? That would be just like, is that what you wanted? Or something.
That's closer. That's closer.
Or did it do something? I don't know. I can't. I don't have any quotes of Heathcliff, so it's getting worse.
And neither of them are British anyway, right? So, like,
I saw somebody's review that said that he slipped into a nice British accent, but like the British accent of like a 50s folk singer or something. So they were not impressed with the accent that much, but said it did sound at least legit for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, hello, and welcome to CinemaShock, the show that digs deep into the stories behind your favorite cult genre movies, and I'm one of your hosts, Gary Horde.
Hey, I'm the other host, Justin Bishop, and welcome to our bonus episode where we are going to be covering, this is part of a series where we're covering a bunch of, new releases while they're still fresh out in theaters. These are episodes that, movies that are chosen by members of CinemaShock Plus. So if you're not a member of CinemaShock Plus and you want to help us decide what our March new release is going to be, go to cinemashock.net/plus and vote in the poll. I'll have it up by the time this episode's out. It'll be up for about a week. So if you're listening to this within the next couple of days, you still have time to join and help us decide which movie we're going to be talking about for March. We threw up a few different ones for February because February was pretty rich with like possibility. We had the new Gore Verbinski movie with the one with Sam Rockwell that looks really good. I've heard really good things about. We had Luc Besson's take on Dracula. That would have been, that's a pretty cool just to see how he would interpret Dracula. We had the new Scream movie, which as we're recording this isn't even out yet, but it does come out by the end of February. So we thought that was kind of a shoo-in because it's Scream, it's a horror movie franchise. And all three of those movies really fit very well into the, cult and genre movies, like the kind of stuff that we talk about. The one I did not expect to win, and it won with an overwhelming percentage of the votes, is the movie that we're talking about today, which is Emerald Fennell's take on Wuthering Heights. So we normally have, in the past, we've done 3 choices. We put in 4 this time and threw this one in there because I'm like, it'd be fun to talk about. It'd be interesting. Fully expecting this one to not win at all. And it won very easily. So you guys really wanted me and Gary to talk about Wuthering Heights for some reason, or you just wanted us to go on a Valentine's Day date, which is what we did.
Which is what happened. Yeah, it turns out CinemaShock Plus subscribers are very horny for Valentine's Day. So
I guess so.
We are.
Or maybe they were just curious what we'd say about it. Now, I will say, after having seen it, granted, it's not going to be a cult film in like the traditional, it failed and then was rediscovered later. Like this movie, I think, is going to do very, very well at the box office. I've seen I know a lot of people personally that are going to see it this weekend, mostly women that I know that are taking like groups of friends to go see this movie. So it's not going to be like a cult film in that way, but I think that its legacy could be very cult-ish in that people who are passionate about it are going to be very passionate about it. And there's going to be a lot to talk about. There's going to be a lot of discourse around this movie. So before we get started on our review, and as we do on all of these bonus episodes, this is kind of our fresh take on it. Me and Gary saw this a little over 24 hours ago, and we're recording this now, and we'll have this episode out by the end of the day today. So this is like very different from our regular episodes where we do a whole bunch of research and things like that and talk about and think about these movies for weeks at a time. This is more just like gut reaction. What did we think about it? But before we get into our reactions, I'm curious what you brought into this as far as like your knowledge of Wuthering Heights, whether it be the book or any of the other adaptations or anything like that, or Emerald Fennell's previous work.
I actually, I know some. Emerald Fennell is polarizing, it feels like.
I would say that's 100%. Yes, correct.
I have not disliked anything she's done. I don't think that I've like loved anything so much that I immediately thought I needed to see it again right away. But Promising Young Woman and Saltburn are very memorable. They've
Yeah.
stuck with me over time. There are
Oh,
things
yeah.
in both movies that I still to this day think about sometimes,
Mhm.
so I'll give her that. And so I think as a filmmaker, she's very competent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very talented. And I liked, actually really love Promising Young Woman. And Saltburn, I admired more than I enjoyed. I thought I'm glad I watched it, and I haven't rewatched it since then. Not because I didn't like it, just because I felt like the discourse around it was stronger than the movie itself. And I think that discourse around that movie is probably even more so than the performance of the movie is probably what got her the money to do such a lavish adaptation of Wuthering Heights, because they knew it was going to generate more buzz online, regardless of the quality of the film. I do think Saltburn is good. I just don't think it's as good as some people do. I know there are some people that hate it. So it like you said, she's very polarizing. I think Promising Young Woman was somewhat polarizing. I think this one is going to be incredibly polarizing. But what's your history with Wuthering Heights as a property?
Knowing it existed. That was
That
my
was
history.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never read the book. I was going to get the audiobook before we went and saw this, and I just didn't have a chance. And yeah, I've not seen any of the adaptations.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I have never read the book. I didn't have to read it in school or anything. It obviously did not really appeal to me as a teenager, which is when most people seem to discover it. I have seen one of the film adaptations, and I just saw it for the first time last week. So, because I knew this was coming out, there was another one I tried that I was going to watch, and I didn't have time. But of course, the book Wuthering Heights, incredibly well known. Even if you haven't read it, you undoubtedly, like Gary, know of it. It was written by Emily Brontë, published in 1847. She published it under a pseudonym, Ellis Bell. Now, Emily Brontë, of course, is part of this famous family, this literary family. Like her father was like a clergyman, I think, but all of her siblings were writers. Her sister was Charlotte Brontë, who's best known for Jane Eyre. She also published that book under a pseudonym, Currer Bell. They all published under pseudonyms. And this is the only book that Emily Brontë released. She died like a year after this from, I don't know, tuberculosis or something, I think. But she died about a year after this. She was only like 29 or 30 years old, very, very young. So she only wrote one book, or only published one book, but it is a book that people are still reading, 150 years later. But at the time that it was released in 1847, now it's kind of known as this epic sort of love story. It was not received as such in 1847 when it came out. Victorian critics really disliked this. They called it savage. They called it animalistic. They called it morally repulsive. It was not viewed as a great love story. And the thing is, like, we'll talk more about this when we talk about the movie, but it's really not the love story that a lot of people seem to think it is. The book itself is a multi-generational saga. The first half of the book is the Catherine Heathcliff story, which is what you get in most adaptations of it. The second half, because it was published in 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2, the second half follows their children and is about kind of breaking the cycle of abuse, of generational abuse. So it's not romantic as much as it is about existential addiction. There's a line in it where Kathy says, "I am Heathcliff," and I think that's even in this version of it. I think she might say that in this. I know she says it in the other version I saw. That's not like love. That is codependency. That is something that, like, it's this sort of like addiction to this other person that destroys everyone around them. Love as a destructive force. But over the years, it became very, very, very popular. And I think one of the reasons that it became known as this like great love story is because of one of the earliest adaptations of it, which was the 1939 William Wyler adaptation. And that's the one that I watched last week. William Wyler is an incredible director from that time period. This one starred Merle Oberon as Kathy and Laurence Olivier, the great Sir Laurence Olivier, as Heathcliff. And it is really like that. It's a good movie. It's a very, very good movie. It is a sweeping romantic melodrama, but it also cuts out the second half of the story, that second generation thing, and it ends with, I mean, spoilers for a 150-year-old book, but it ends with Catherine dying and Heathcliff kind of walking off into the snowy moors to join her, right? And that version sort of invented the idea of Heathcliff as a tragic romantic hero rather than the abuser that he is in the book. But even like when I was watching that version of the movie, I was like, man, Kathy and Heathcliff fucking suck. Like these guys are terrible, and I hate them. I hate both of them. Like they're just terrible people. And I think that's, for some reason, people seem to forget about that with this story. It feels like, at least in the stuff that I've found floating around, people seem to like they're romanticizing a story that isn't really romantic.
Well, I was reading a lot about the book, especially after watching the movie, because I was just curious, like how the book played out. Because there's some things in this movie that I was like, surely this is not in the book. Like and I think that is still true. Like there's certain ways things play out that aren't quite the same, but even at the time, it seems as though that was how the book was received by people. I think there was an expectation, which is maybe why this was the perfect person to make this film. Because one thing I was going to say, I think every movie I've seen of hers takes turns I did not expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is a pre-existing story, but it's exactly that. Like it just goes into places I don't think I was, ready for. Like as far as, I don't know, I just had this assumption. I'm thinking like Downton Abbey, and maybe it's just like or like just a romance, like a Victorian romance or something. I don't know exactly, and it's coming out on Valentine's Day, and it's promoted that way. And Margot, Robbie, and Jacob, I don't know how to say the last name. Elordi. Yeah, Jacob Elordi are doing the circuit with like just loving on each other, and they're obviously like playing it up. I think this has to happen in marketing, where they have to like just be like, oh, and he was so protective of me here, and like this thing happened. There's like building it up as a romance, and again, spoilers for I don't know how many times we have to say that we're going to talk about spoilers. I guess there's no way around it, and this book's old.
The book's old. I mean, we'll talk about things that the movie does that are probably, if you haven't read the book and you want to go in spoiler free, I guess maybe skip this review, but because we'll talk about spoilers from the book. But the movie will do some things that are a little different from the book that we might wait till the end and put a little spoiler alert before. So we'll wait to talk about that if there's anything we need to say.
Yeah, it's just this. It's not exactly. It is a romance, but not the kind of romance that you're used to. And and from my understanding, when I was reading about the book, that's also how it was received. There were people who were like, if you look at even reviews from that time period, or like how people received it, they're kind of like, people are feeling something.
Yeah.
They don't know that that's what they expected to feel when they got into it. But they're like kind of the same way I felt at the end of it, where I was like, what the fuck? Like, that?
And it's interesting because over the years, I mean, this has been adapted so many times for stage, for television, for film. And it's interesting to see and to read about like all the different ways that different filmmakers, directors, writers, whoever are adapting it, and what they're changing and what they're keeping from the original book. Like one of the other, probably considered, other than the William Wyler one, is considered like the premier adaptation of this. It's a sweeping, like, I mean, it's Laurence Olivier. I mean, it's William Wyler, who is a legend. So it's like, it's incredibly well done. That sort of seen as like the gold standard. I think the other one of the many adaptations of this that have come out that is considered kind of like top tier is from 2011, Andrea Arnold's version of that, which stars Kaya Scodelario as Kathy and James Howson as Heathcliff. And James Howson is the first black actor to play Heathcliff. Now, notably, in the original book, racism and classism both play very much into the themes. The character of Heathcliff is described as being dark-skinned. He's described as like a dark-skinned gypsy. So part of the reason that he is treated the way that he is because of the color of his skin, more so, or in addition to his like class that he is in, which you lose in any other adaptation that, including this one, that doesn't have that. And Andrea Arnold's version is very stripped down, like handheld camera. There's no music, there's no score. It is like very gritty and muddy, and just kind of focuses on the brutality of the environment and the isolation of Wuthering Heights and where they are. Now, and those aren't the only adaptations. Like there's one from 1970 that stars Timothy Dalton as Heathcliff. There is one from 1992, Ralph Fiennes, who we talked about in our last bonus episode a lot. He made his film debut as Heathcliff in 1992 in an adaptation of this, which featured Juliette Binoche as Kathy. And that one is often called like the scariest Heathcliff, because he is actually genuinely like just full of malice and demonic. Louis Buñuel did a Mexican version in the 50s that's very surreal because it's Louis Buñuel. There's a BBC miniseries from 1967 that featured Ian McShane, a very young Ian McShane as Heathcliff. Nice. And it's that's the version that actually inspired Kate Bush to write the song Wuthering Heights, was the 1967 BBC version.
Do you know, I just saw Ian McShane in a really good movie that I enjoyed. That was
The Last of Sheila?
Yeah, The Last
of
Sheila.
I saw that. That must have been part of your movie night with Jonathan, because he posted that he was watching that in our Discord. That's a great movie. Very good movie. Yeah. Written by Stephen Sondheim, which is super weird.
Yeah, and Norman Bates.
And James Mason. And it's a fantastic film. I watched it for the first time last year. Highly recommend it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about...
I derailed.
It's okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
But I'm just naming all of these adaptations to say that like there have been many, many takes on Wuthering Heights over the last since I think the first version that came out on film was in like the 1920s. So like over the past 100 years, there have been many, many takes on this story, and many directors who are taking liberty, however they want to take liberty, and telling the story the way that they want to tell it. And I think that extends to Emerald Fennell's approach, which again is going to be very divisive, I think, because it strays very far from the book in many ways. And she leans into, she calls it, in interviews, she called it pop Gothic is sort of the approach that she's taking, which I like that. I like that descriptor.
That feels right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is not like a historical recreation of the time. Andrea Arnold's is probably closest to that. It's very stylized and very extravagant and very over the top. The costuming, the set design, it all like looks like it's from this time period, but in a way that's exaggerated with like modern sensibilities.
Also, I'm going to mention this before I forget to mention it, but we're talking about Fennell. Another slight derailment, just briefly, isn't it weird too that this is the second one we've had voted on by our CinemaShock Plus subscribers, and both of them have been female directors? I think that's interesting too.
That is interesting. We'll see if it happens for a third time in March during Women's History Month.
Yeah, well, you guys should do that then. If there's one that fits in the group.
Yeah, I got to see what I haven't looked at the new releases yet. I got to see what they're going to be, but I'll try to throw one in there if there is. But I did want to mention like some of the key differences I think between this adaptation and you could do a whole, and there will be a dozen by the time that this episode comes out, which is 2 days after the movie was released. There will probably be dozens of like YouTube videos where people are talking about like the differences between the book and the movie. But I think one of the key differences is in the casting of Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie. So Jacob Elordi, obviously not black, very light skinned. So that whole like the whole racism theme from the original story does not exist, and it honestly doesn't exist in any of the adaptations that I just mentioned, except for Andrea Arnold's. They're also both. I think Jacob Elordi is in his late 20s. Margot Robbie's in her mid 30s. But in the book, they are teenagers. They're like 19. I think Catherine's 19 when she dies in the book. So it kind of shifts the dynamic from doomed, dramatic teenagers to adults who are trapped in Arrested Development and still acting like children is kind of what it feels like. And this one also, it's only the first half of the book, and there's no like wraparound. There's this wraparound thing in the William Wyler version that comes from the book, from what I understand, where he sees the ghost of Catherine, which kind of plays into his final words to her when she dies, and that's not mentioned at all in this one. Like he does, like the 1939 version, he looks out the window and he sees Catherine on the moors, and this is years after she's passed away. So this movie does not hint at that remotely, not in dialogue, not in any way whatsoever. So I don't know that really affects the story to me. I don't think it does, except that their love in the original context, their love transcended the grave and like lived beyond the grave, and you could say that, which that doesn't play into what Fennell is doing here.
They say it.
Yeah, I mean, he says something like, but he doesn't say, like, I think in the 1939 version, he actually literally says, you can haunt me or something like that. Like he's like very specific about it. Like he's asking to be haunted.
Happy Valentine's Day to my wife. Do not do that if you go first. I do not want that.
You don't want to be haunted. You don't want to be a ghost.
I don't want to be haunted.
Oh, yeah. No?
Yeah. No.
Not even by like a friendly ghost?
We have a relationship where she threatens that all the time.
Yeah, she would dress up in like this ghost face mask and just fuck with you all the time, I feel like.
Oh, 100%. That would be a goal. If it's possible, that's what she'll do.
So, Gary, knowing that you didn't have any frame of reference really for Wuthering Heights other than knowing that it existed, what were your first thoughts watching this? Because you knew to expect an Emerald Fennell movie, so you know that she was going to try to push some buttons because that's kind of her thing.
For me, she didn't go as shocking as I expected it to be.
Nobody's slurping cum out of a bathtub drain in this one as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't quite go that far.
Not quite.
There's a scene that gets close.
Yeah, there are a couple of moments that get where she plays around with that, but yeah, not quite.
Well, the difference, I mean, the important part is like it's a little bit more when the juices are on the drain in a bathtub. That adds another layer. So
yeah.
That's why I say not quite as shocking.
Right.
Let's see. Okay, so I've gone through a ride on this one. I think you were there with me at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. We both went with our significant others. Now, I will say for anybody listening that this is important for like ladies or whatever, it got my wife and did all the things it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
She felt emotions and had the tears and did all the stuff. So the thing is by the end of the movie, when it ended, she was asking me if I cried during the movie, and I was like, so I said, no, that was dumb.
Your first raw reaction.
The initial. I'm just giving you my initial hot take right at the end of the thing. So the reason that I said that was that because it was just not what I was prepared for, to be fair. So I think the further along we went, I mean, talking the same night, just getting away from it, the more I was like, okay, I thought the acting was electric. I thought Margot Robbie was great. I was impressed with her acting, honestly, in this, like just the tears that she got and just I thought she was on fire. Honestly, Elordi, he had that like menace and was like smoldering, and just with his beefy muscles and his man chest, and just like his eyes are great. I don't want to get too weird here, but like he's good. He seems like a very fractured person. So I was in. I liked what's her name? Hong Chow, I think.
Hong Chow, yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah.
And like everybody. I thought the acting was really good. And then I was like, well, I just don't think I I just don't think I like the movie. But then I was like, all right, well, let's think about the movie. The more I talked about the movie, I was like, but it's really beautiful. It does have some really cool shots in it. And then I started thinking like, oh, wait, Fennell did a good job. Like, I think it was a well-made movie. And I eventually just pivoted to, okay, my problem is that by act 3 of this movie, I hated everybody in the movie. And I didn't want good things for any of them. And I was just kind of like, this is horrifying. Like, what is wrong with these people? And that made me think it's not the movie at all. I guess I just don't like this story. And then where we're at today, I think I've landed on, no, I think I felt the things I was supposed to feel for this story.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. So
yeah,
if that helps at all, I was all over the place, but that's how I've felt since I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense though, because the thing is, the way the movie is being marketed it came out on Valentine's Day or Valentine's Day weekend, and the trailers show this big, it looks like a big sweeping romance. It's featuring two of the most beautiful people on the face of the planet. And it actually says on the trailer, inspired by, which I think the inspired by and not based on is carrying a lot of weight there, but inspired by the world's greatest love story or something like that. Like, that was the tagline on the first trailer. So if you are unfamiliar with Wuthering Heights and you walk in thinking, okay, this is a big sweeping Victorian romance based on the greatest love story ever written, is what they're making it sound like, then you're going to be expecting a romance. And this is not a romance. It is a horror movie about codependency. Like, that is what it is. This is like, everyone in this sucks. That's the thing. Like, Kathy sucks. Heathcliff sucks. Isabella does not suck in the original version. She is one of the many people who gets her life destroyed by the destructive force of these two people's obsession with each other. I don't even want to call it love necessarily. It's an obsession. Lenton, who is in this version of the movie, is the most probably innocent person. He's just like wants to spend lavish amounts of money on his hot wife and gets fucked
Right.
over for it. Right. But he did. And Hong Chau's character, in the original book, she was a lot more neutral. She's the narrator of the book, I believe, but she's a lot more neutral. Whereas in this, she becomes more of a player in this game that these two are playing against each other, and she manipulates things. So even she, who starts as sympathetic earlier on, when she's, especially in the scenes when she's younger, becomes pretty unsympathetic because she makes the situation much worse than it probably would have been anyway. So it's very hard to like root for anybody in this.
Well, because it's also tough to like even tell like who's to blame. When you every single decision, which maybe this is a quality, a good quality, but it's just like every single decision you're like, well, that happened because this happened, and that person wouldn't have done that if not for this. And it's just you could just continue down that rabbit hole. It's just like to where you're eventually just like, okay, just everybody sucks, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say that part of what's wrong with these two people is that they have both suffered. Like I was saying earlier, one of the themes of the original book is sort of generational trauma. Well, we don't know what Heathcliff's past really is, right? We know that he comes from nothing. We know that in this version, we see him briefly, with his dad or whoever, the person who says this is dad, who just gives him away. So he's not lived a good childhood. So he has been abused, and that's what he has learned. And then in the original book, there is, and in the 1939 version as well, and in many of the other adaptations, Catherine's got a brother that Fennell cuts out of her story. His name is Henley, and he bullies Heathcliff throughout his childhood. He's horrible, and then he comes back in the end, or he comes back later on to live in Wuthering Heights, because in the original story, the father dies while they're children, and in Emerald Fennell's version, she kind of took the brother character and the dad character and mashed them together. because in Henley, the brother is a degenerate gambler and an alcoholic, which is what we see the father turn into. In the original, at least in the movie version, I can't speak of the book since I haven't read it, but in the movie version, the father is very like loving and sympathetic. But Henley is cruel, his son, and that's really who like sends like he sets a lot of things into motion because he's so cruel to Heathcliff that he plants this sort of like seed in Heathcliff of cruelty, which he's already probably experienced by whoever his guardians were before this family took him in. So it's about this cycle of abuse, but none of the versions of the book, none of the adaptations really play into that as much because they are omitting the second half of the book, which is about their children experiencing and then breaking that cycle. So it just becomes about these two people who are like fucked up. And we don't know why Kathy is the way she is. Like why, other than her father in this version is very cruel and she sees him being cruel. So maybe that's where her brokenness comes from.
A lot of Kathy's to me seems to be a little bit of her being spoiled, I would say. Like some of it, like
kind of a brat.
Yeah, she's just kind of a brat. Shout out to Charlie XCX, who's who's on the soundtrack. So,
oh yeah, she's great. I mean, her music in this is really fun. I really like the like sort of. It's not anachronistic in the same way that like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet is, where it's set in modern times, or even quite like Marie Antoinette that used like modern songs. But it does have that feeling to it and adds to that like non-reality of this world that Fennell has created.
Yeah. So to Kathy, like she obviously is faced with like a hard choice, and she's not necessarily like an especially cruel or bad person or anything as a child. I mean, she's relatively kind natured, it seems like, you know. And, all of that. It's just it's that obsession part that gets her. And there are these moments of you see with Hong Chau's character, well, as their kids, like she's a little shit to her sometimes, you know, like it. So that's the hard part, which makes that character become a shit. And then, you know, so it just like they keep giving it back to each other, it seems like. So yeah, and it's tough to say, like, let me think of how I want to put this. It feels like this is the purpose of the story, though. Like that this wasn't supposed to be like you keep saying, it's not a romance or anything like that. So I don't know. I guess it just really caught me off guard, like to even right now that I'm still just like, God, am I really supposed to hate all of these people? Because by the end, even all the sympathy that you get for them or the things that you see in their histories that should cause you to get sympathy for them, they do enough throughout the movie that by the end of it, you're still just like, okay, well, you know, you're ruining all my goodwill here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what's so interesting about this, the whole phenomenon of this, because I'm seeing even like people I know who are going to see the movie, and like your wife ended up, you know, she was crying at the end, and like, and I've seen other people I know like post on Instagram like, oh, I cried so much when it was over, and it's like, who are you weeping for? Are you weeping because Kathy died? I mean, yeah, it's sad that she died, and but it feels like a lot of that crying is for their lost love, but these people were like that was not a healthy relationship. that was a very I think that's the understatement of the year. That was a very unhealthy relationship. Even Emerald Fennell, when she's talking about this, and this is why I think a lot of that expectation, like what you're talking about, comes from the marketing more than the filmmaker's intent, because she described it as not a romance. She described it as a vampire movie without vampires. Like a movie that's focused on these two people that just drain the life out of everyone around them. And I think that's a pretty good description of these people. Like, these are not people to look up to. These are not people to really feel any sympathy for. They're sort of like, they ruin everything they touch, it feels like. And now, what are the roots of that? That's an interesting thing to explore. The movie doesn't quite do that. It leads into a lot of different it leads into a lot of like sadomasochism. Like literally, like there's a BDSM sort of like subplot with one of the characters that's obviously not from the book, but Emerald Fennell is adding stuff like that because she's trying to capture that same sort of transgression that I think that the original book captured. Like it felt very shocking to Victorians. Obviously, sensibilities have changed in the last 150 years, and you have to do different things to shock audiences now. And I mean, we all seen Saltburn. We know that Emerald Fennell likes to shock people. So she had to up the ante to actually shock people who have modern sensibilities, so she had to add stuff like that in there. But she was looking to capture this sort of masochistic pleasure of the book that focused on Catherine and Heathcliff. Just they seem to enjoy hurting each other, and it makes them very hard to sympathize with.
Yeah, I was one of the things I saved was I was looking at contemporary reviews of the book just to see, and the Examiner had one, and they wrote, "This is a strange book. It is not without evidences of considerable power, but as a whole, it is wild, confused, disjointed, and improbable. And the people who make up the drama, which is tragic enough in its consequences, are savages ruder than those who lived before the days of Homer." I was like, wow. I was like, that's okay. So it seems to have hit just like the book, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounds like. And I mean, and all of this is to say, like, this is not really, we're talking about all this character stuff as if it's, I want us to be clear that this is not about the quality of the movie necessarily. This is just us wrestling with how these characters are depicted. I personally think that that's exactly what Fennell was going for, because again, it's a reflection of the original source material, even if it's not a direct adaptation of the source material, because there are a lot of changes. But that central like idea of these two people are sort of, they literally say like, I am Heathcliff. Like she wants to be, like she's part of him. I think in this version, she says something like, whatever souls are made of, ours are the same. Like we share a soul, something along those lines. And Fennell, one of the quotes that I found from her says that she said, people call it a love story, but it's a story about two people who want to climb inside each other's skin. That isn't sweet, quote unquote sweet. It's visceral and frankly a bit kinky. So that's where she's like, these are not people who are necessarily like in love the way that it's being marketed. These are people who are obsessed with each other, and it might be a sexual obsession. There could be love there, but they are, like I said before, I think it's really a story of tragic codependency.
It's these two people who want each other so bad that they poison everything else about everybody around them. And it's like, I don't know. I guess, yeah, you're looking to root for them, and they don't want you to. They just don't care if you do or not. It's so crazy to me that like I felt for Elordi's character Heathcliff for most of the movie, but he gets to a point at the end where even he, like I thought he was the one who was put upon, and you're like, he's like a lost puppy in a way, so you kind of feel for him. But even him by the end, I will say for the movie, at least, the turn that he takes felt a little forced for me. Like I was just like, wow, he just went really dark.
Well, so he's very like, I feel like he is sympathetic in the earlier scenes. Like I when he's a kid is one thing, but when he's an adult, when he's their stable boy, he comes across as more sympathetic, as does she. But she is sort of being driven by this classism that makes her care more about what people are going to think and her lot in life and being able to marry into money than she does about this person who she genuinely seems to care about in those early scenes. As like, I think she genuinely cares about him in a loving way in those early scenes. It's after he comes back that because he feels like he's been screwed. I mean, he sort of has. But when he comes back, he is very vindictive and he is out for revenge. Essentially, it becomes a revenge story that he's sort of fighting these like feelings of both, I'm obsessed with this woman and I want to be with her, but also I'm pissed off at everyone, including her, for what's happened in my life. And he goes and actually betters himself and gets rich out of revenge, which is a whole new level of petty when you think about it.
Well, what's funny about that part too, I still wonder how that happened. Like he seems to have I mean, the circumstances for him becoming wealthy like are mysterious. Like it doesn't tell you where it comes from. I don't know if it does in the book.
I don't know if it does in the book either, but in the Laurence Olivier version, it is not explained. It is said that he goes to America, and there's this whole there's this thing that they say when they're kids at the beginning of it, where he's like, she makes up this because he doesn't know anything about his past or anything, and she makes up this backstory for him where like his father was a Chinese emperor and his mother was a Indian queen or something like that. And then someday he's going to have a lost family member come back and tell him that he's got this inheritance. So when he comes back from America for the second half of it, that's how he explains, turns out I was a prince. Turns out my father was a Chinese emperor. So he just plays into like this make-believe story that she had without ever actually saying how he made his money. He never says it. He leaves it mysterious.
Yeah, it's strange. And I feel like I read in the book as well that him taking over Wuthering Heights, I don't know if I'm going too far into spoilers, but just him taking that is in the book more of him taking advantage of the situation
or of the brother, actually of the brother in that case, where he actually like pays off his, this guy owes so much money from his gambling debts and stuff, and he swoops in and pays for all of his gambling debts and his booze and all the like debts that he has,
right,
as a way to like not only take over the house, but to keep him sort of like, now I can look down on you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's another like part of his revenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. All of the stuff is clearly from trauma. It's just that everybody kind of becomes complicit with it. Like they just, it's not even that they don't know where it comes from. They just are kind of like, well, it just is what it is. And now we're going to just, pass it on down. And so that's what makes it tough.
Yeah. But like, again, I think that a lot of this comes from the book, even if it's told in a very different way. And there are things in the movie that are going to be very shocking to people. Like I think what you're hinting at, where the Heathcliff character goes with his cruelty, is shocking. And it is a little unbelievable, but it's also like it, again, if she's trying to shock people, like that's a way to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like Dom and Letty have a more healthy relationship.
Much, much healthier. Yes.
They even say ride or die, but it's just something about it feels better than.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I got out of this movie yesterday, like I enjoyed it. I was talking with Bunny about it on the way home, and I was like, I really thought that was really well done. I still hate Heathcliff and Kathy, just like I hated them on the last movie I watched with them. Like I still think they're terrible people. I think it is, though. It's still very enthralling the whole time. Even if you're not on board with the characters, like you're on board with wanting to know where the story goes. And I think that I really, really like Emerald Fennell's like aesthetic and take on it. Like I think it is very, it's on the surface. Yeah. It has this feeling of like a Victorian period piece, like a costume drama, but it's actually very sort of trashy in the way that like some like British soap operas and stuff are, like it's very trashy and very over the top and very garish. And I think that's intentional. I don't think this is not like a beautiful Victorian, like this is not a Merchant Ivory movie. It is very stylized, and that goes from the cinematography, the sets. The sets are very stylized. Like Wuthering Heights itself does not look like a house that should exist. It is same with the Grange, the Linton's house. It is gorgeous, but it like no houses looked like that in Victorian times. Like this looks like an insane, like Salvador Dali's version of a Victorian house.
Well, I thought the description that you said she used, what was it? Pop
Gothic.
Yeah, pop Gothic. That's I can't think of a better way to say it than that.
Yeah.
It's just it's And I think it's just a matter of coming to terms with don't look for heroes in this, because it's just this is humanity at its worst,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, if I had to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on it, I'm thumbs upping on this one. Like I have not been able to stop thinking about it since I saw it yesterday, to the point where I've been trying to read stuff about it. I'm not more about the backstory on it than other people's takes on it. I didn't want to read a lot of reviews before we got in here to have that influence me, but I have read some interviews with her and some information on the past adaptations and things like that to see how this compares. And I just can't get it out of my head. And part of it is because it is a very complex story and it is not black and white, and it is not, it feels like it has characters that you can both sympathize with and despise depending on the scene. And that's pretty unusual, to not have everything spelled out for you.
Yeah. I think if you'd asked me within the first couple of hours of leaving the theater, I was already in my head prepping my preamble of like, listen, who am I to judge someone else's art? Everybody's entitled to their opinions. I did not like this at all. That kind of thing.
Well, I remember we talked briefly about it after the movie, and we didn't want to get too much into it because we wanted to have our thoughts fresh for this. But I remember you saying I just didn't like that, basically.
But it was like the more I had to chew on it, I was just I finally I explained it. I went through a process with this movie where I was eventually just I just didn't like the story, and then I was like, well, no, the story did what the story was supposed to do. This was the story, and it's just I didn't like the people in the story, but that doesn't mean that they weren't portrayed properly. That is who these people were.
Yeah, I mean, and they're arguably worse in the book. I think Heathcliff in the book, he becomes a landlord for one thing, in the second half of the book, and hangs a puppy and kills a puppy.
Jesus.
And if you want to turn anyone into the most unsympathetic character in the world, have that happen, right? So it's these were not written to be people that you are rooting for. It's just about you experiencing what they're experiencing. You're not supposed to love them or this is not a tragic love story like Romeo and Juliet, which gets quoted in this by Isabella, who I love, by the way. I really love Alison Oliver, who plays Isabella.
Oh, so good.
She's so good. And I was not really familiar with her up until about a month or so ago. She's in that show Task on HBO with Mark Ruffalo, which is fantastic. Highly recommend it. But she is one of the FBI task members, and she's a really great character in that. And I was not expecting this. I didn't know she was in this, and I saw her and I was like, how is this the same person? Because she's in that, it's all set in Baltimore, and she's got a thick Baltimore accent, and in this she is this very shy, skittish, very sort of repressed, nebbishy sort of little character. But she starts off at least as very, very sympathetic. She becomes more not complacent, but she becomes more, I don't know. Her character, we'd have to do a whole podcast about what happens with her character to really dig into it, because it's complicated. And I feel like I need to really write out and think out my thoughts on that before I get too much into it.
Yeah, I think I just wasn't giving this movie enough credit at first, because it was an expectation thing, because I wasn't going into a movie that I expected to be a quote unquote romance where I'm rooting for the couple to leave each other alone.
Y'all listen, find somebody else. I mean,
you guys got to stop.
Y'all got to quit. Come on, look at you.
There's no way this ends well.
Either one of you could have any other human on the planet. Just pick
right. Right, exactly.
Pick anyone. But they are, I mean, from a filmmaking standpoint, I think Fennell is doing fantastic work here. I think this is maybe my favorite of her movies so far. I love the aesthetic. I love the costume design and the set design. If they do not both get nominated for an Oscar come next year, it'll be a crime, because it is fantastic. And I think Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi are both, I mean, the whole cast really, but of course they're the leads. I think they're fantastic. And I think the music is great. I think the cinematography is phenomenal. It is just as an aesthetic exercise, it is a phenomenal movie. But it gives you a lot to talk about and a lot to think about, and whether or not you like it, because I know a lot of people don't like how far it has strayed from the book, especially with, I think, Isabel's character, and the father is obviously very different because he's not in the book as much as he is in this, and as well as some other, ways that it differs. But watching it as it is, which is, I think Emerald Fennell said this was she put quotes around the title Wuthering Heights, because she's like, this is not actually an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. I don't think you can adapt Wuthering Heights. This is inspired by the feelings that I had reading Wuthering Heights when I was 14 years old. That's what she's trying to recreate here.
She was wild at 14.
I know, right? Well, she was repressed, and I think she went to like a all girls school, so she just had to work something out or something. I don't know. But she actually said she cast Jacob Elordi. I mean, he had been in Saltburn, of course, but she's like, he looks like the guy that was on the cover of the paperback I read when I was 14 years old.
Yeah, I saw that when people were like criticizing, the skin color thing with him, and she was just like, he was the guy, So it just,
I don't know how much more I have to say other than it's a complicated movie. It's gorgeous. It's well made. It's going to make a lot of people mad. I'm not one of them. I thought it was really well done, but maybe it's because I have a distance from the book that some other people don't have.
You were mentioning the people that have a problem with it, with the choices that it makes separate from the book, but so I haven't read the book, so I don't have like any close connection to it. So that's fine. Like you said, the separation from the book, but I guess I'm thinking, based on everything I can read about the book, this movie I think I got all of the same stuff people that read the book in the first place were getting, and I think that's the point, or, like, at least if you're going to remake something or tell the story or adapt it or whatever, if you get the feeling of it right.
That's the thing. I think far too many people especially in recent years, I think people put too much emphasis on adaptations being word for word. And I don't think adaptations need to be word for word. I think there are obviously, there are certain things that you want to see from a book that you love depicted in a movie. But I think that if you want word for word, read the fucking book. Otherwise, this is a version of the same story filtered through another artist. And I think some of the best adaptations are ones where that's what you're getting, where you're getting the book as an inspiration to another artist who has a vision of their own. A great example of that, I think, is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I, as you know, am a huge, huge Stephen King fan. My favorite author, I've read not all of his books, but I've read most of his books, many of them several times. I love Stephen King. I love The Shining. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is, I would say, it's my favorite horror movie. And it is not a good adaptation of The Shining. As far as like a word for word adaptation, scene for scene adaptation, Stephen King famously hates Kubrick's version of The Shining because it is. I think it's great because it is a Stanley Kubrick movie that is using Stephen King's text as his inspiration, as his starting point to tell the story that he wants to tell. I mean, that's Kubrick's entire career, to be honest. That's almost every movie he made was inspired by something else. But it's a fantastic adaptation because it is like you're taking two artists and taking the themes that they're obsessed with, and you're kind of putting them together, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here. I think it should say Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights as the title. Like, that should be the title of the movie, because that's what it is. This is not Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. This is Emerald Fennell's version. This is her taking a book that she loved as a teenager and filtering it through some of her own obsessions, which include, kinky sex, apparently, from between this and Saltburn, and also between this and Saltburn, classism. And she's taking that stuff, and she is, she's taking the themes of that book and working it through her own aesthetic. And I like the end result.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to put it this way, but it's like Brontë for TikTok, like it's obviously more overheated, more unapologetic than like what the book would be. But I mean, I think for this generation, because you could have, like you said, do word for word, and then it's like, I think you'd have lost a lot of people from this
Yeah.
For now, for like the audience that you need to reach. And
if it had been word for word, I would have probably been bored. Like this, I was constantly like on the seat, on the edge of my seat. Like I was like, where are they going with this? And like what's happening next? Like what is she going to do different? Like what's the next scene going to even look like or sound like? Like what, because you never really knew, and it was constantly surprising me.
I think it's worth it now, rethinking it. I think it's worth it now just for the seeing it.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like even as an aesthetic exercise, it's amazing. Even if you take the character stuff out of it, the costume, the cinematography, the music, the Charlie XCX music, and the score is all just like it's great. It makes for a very unique experience. So even though I did not expect this to be our CinemaShock Plus pick, I'm kind of glad that it became it, because it made me think a lot more about it than I might have otherwise, and due to thinking about it more and letting it stew more than I might have if I had just gone to see it, because I would have seen it anyway probably. I think letting it stew and considering it more made me enjoy it even more. It sounds like you are in the kind of the same boat.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I don't know what made our CinemaShock Plus subscribers vote for this one to win. I don't know if you were hoping I would go on an unhinged rant about it and hate it so much.
I think they thought it would be funny if me and you went to see Wuthering Heights on Valentine's Day, honestly. I think that's what it was.
Yeah. But now, no matter what your intentions were, for me, I'm glad that I did, because I don't think I would have seen this. I definitely wouldn't have gone to the theater to see this, and I would not have seen it unless the wife made me later. And because I had just being straight up, had no desire to see it. But I'm glad that I did. And I think it's a good movie.
Wow. He turned around in 24 hours.
I did.
From that was dumb to it's a good movie. So
you sometimes maybe that's a good side of art. Maybe I don't know. Sometimes it makes you go through the things, and and the fact that I even thought about it for 24 hours already tells me there's something different about this too.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Unless you have anything else to add for this one, Gary, I think we've covered most of the bases, at least for our, quick thoughts on it, hour-long quick thoughts. But
no, I think that's it. I appreciate anybody listening. Thank you for checking us out, and let us know, like on cinema_shock on all the things. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Wuthering Heights and what we missed or what we're dead wrong about.
Yeah.
And what we got right, any of it.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I'd love to hear other people's opinions, whether they agree with me or not. And I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this one, but that's fine. That's the great thing about art, is that it is often subjective. And if you're listening to this and you've never heard CinemaShock before, and you just discovered this because you were curious about Wuthering Heights, and you're like, I wonder what two fucking dudes in their mid-40s thought about Wuthering Heights, then thank you for listening. But check out our other stuff, cinemashock.net, for all the stuff like Gary said, or just, click on the feed. We've got hundreds of episodes out there. And if you want to help us decide on what our next CinemaShock Plus pick is, our next new release movie that we're going to be doing, we do this once a month. We do have a new long form series in the works that I think our longtime listeners and new listeners are going to be very, very excited about. But until then, we're going to continue to do these monthly new release reviews, and we let our members over at CinemaShock Plus decide on what those movies are going to be. So we'll put up a poll on CinemaShock Plus with 3 or 4 movies for them to vote on, and we should have those results in like a week or so. So if you want to be part of that and you want to help decide what we're going to review next, head to cinemashock.net/plus. Otherwise, just subscribe to the feed and be ready for our next new release review, as well as our new series that should be starting fairly soon. That's all I got today, Gary. That's the plug. The plug's over.
Well, if you care to, you can follow me at This Is Gary Horde on all of the things. I'd love to hear from you.
And I'm at Justin_Bishop. If you want to tell me how wrong I was about Wuthering Heights, how I didn't understand it at all, please help.
Please do.
But until next time,
may the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
And be excellent to each other.